It's 300,000 years ago, and you're out by a stream digging for roots. Your baby is sleeping on your back. Your other kids are back at the cave with the rest of your group. And it's hot. So you put down your digging stick for a moment, cup your hands into the stream, and take a long drink. When suddenly, you hear something. A voice. Some kind of creature making a sound you've never heard before. You hide in the bushes and listen. Whatever it is, it's getting closer. And even though the voice is unfamiliar and the sounds it's making are new, there's something instantly recognizable about it, too. Even before you see it, you know what kind of animal this is. The same kind you are. A human being. Welcome to Threshold. I'm Amy Martin, and after 12 episodes, we have finally arrived at the emergence of our own species, Homo sapiens. Our early human history seems like a long time ago to us now, but we're actually very recent additions to the story of life on Earth. Microbes have been around for at least 3.5 billion years. Fish, 480 million years or so. Dinosaurs showed up around 230 million years ago, the first elephants about 8 million years ago. But we humans are the first animal we're meeting this season, whose time on Earth is counted not in billions or millions of years, but thousands.
Archaic Homo sapiens evolved into Homo sapiens around, we think now, 300,000 years ago.
300,000 years is like nothing.
It's like nothing.
Sarah Verts is an archaeologist based in South Africa. I reached out to her because I wanted to know what the world might have sounded like to the first humans, and how we sounded to each other.
So through genetic analysis, we can see that possibly the whole of Africa had small groups of anatomically modern humans that must have interacted.
Sarah says that although it's clear we evolved in Africa, there's no single location we can point to and say definitively, this is where our species began. But we do know that early humans lived in small groups that mixed and mingled with each other.
So if you imagine a landscape in which there are small groups that are connected, they would have had to communicate with each other. And there are various ways to do that.
They might have clapped, banged sticks together, shouted, hummed, sang out.
I'm almost sure they would have had calls.
And eventually, Homo sapiens started to do this. And this. Our distant ancestors did not have music or language, and now, somehow, we do. How did that transformation happen, and when, and why? There are no conclusive answers to these questions, only educated guesses, and we're going to ponder some of them in this episode. One thing we can say for sure, though, is that humans emerged into a world filled with the voices of other creatures and the sounds of our places. And just like all the other beings we've met this season, we wouldn't be here today if we hadn't listened carefully to our surroundings. And it was in this context of attunement that our ancestors began to speak and make music together. We sang and drummed and talked with each other for a very long time before we started translating these sonic experiences into written characters, alphabets, and systems of musical notation. In other words, these two signature human skills of music and language, things we often think of as expressive abilities, are deeply rooted in listening. It's a lovely May morning in Brisbane, Australia, and I'm sitting on the edge of a sandbox on the campus of Griffith University. I just think it's so cool that a university campus has a giant sandbox.
Yeah. There's actually two. There's that one too.
Archaeologist Jane Wilkins has agreed to meet me here with her fellow archaeologist Michelle Langley and honors student Aidan Hughes. Together, we're going to try to recreate one important part of the soundscape of an early human community: the sounds of people making stone tools.
Jokingly, I refer to it as like banging rocks.
Aidan tells me he's going to make a hand axe, kind of like a rounded stone knife. And he shows me the two kinds of rocks he'll be using.
So you get what you call a hammerstone, and then you get sort of your nodule, your core, hit one with the other, and it breaks off what they call a flake.
The core is the bigger piece, the part that will become the axe. But the flakes, the thin little pieces that fly off as he works the stone, can also be used as tools.
They have really sharp edges, so this is a bit of a warning, Amy. If you do touch anything here, they're really, really sharp.
Okay.
A lot sharper than you think they would be. I actually cut my finger this morning just getting this stuff ready.
Okay. That sharpness is, of course, the goal here.
If you ever watch those survivalist shows, the people who take a knife in with them, that's what you need.
That's Michelle Langley, and she says when we think of stone knives, our minds often immediately go to hunting and butchering animals. And of course, those were important uses, but there were many others.
I'm sure there was a lot of cutting up of fruits and vegetables and fibres and just trying to get bits of wood to make fires once we were creating fires. So it's not all about meat. A knife is good for anything that you'd need to cut and scrape.
I can imagine this being a really homey sound. This is so clearly a sound made by your group, and maybe you're returning back and you hear this and it's like, oh, there they are.
Yeah. There'd be fires, so you'd hear the crackling. You'd hear people talking, right? Like groups talking, and you'd hear all of that, plus this. like a couple people doing that. And all the nature sounds too, the animals that you know, the birds that you know.
And these would have been familiar sounds not just for the relative newcomers, Homo sapiens, but for our predecessors as well.
People started making stone tools 3 million years ago. And this is before our species, right? Before Homo sapiens. But it's even before our genus. So even before our genus Homo, it was Australopithecines.
The Australopithecines have become world famous through the skeleton of an adult female who lived over 3 million years ago in what we now call Ethiopia. She's known as Lucy in English and Dinknesh in Amharic, which means you are marvelous. She stood just over a meter tall and mostly walked upright. And although we can't say for sure that Lucy herself created stone tools, her species probably did. And even before Australopithecus, Jane says other primates were using stone tools.
Our nearest cousins, the great apes and chimpanzees, for example, use tools, and they use rocks as tools even, but they don't make those rocks into tools. So that's the difference. That 3 million years ago, people started making stones into tools.
So by the time Homo sapiens emerged, these sounds of rocks hitting rocks and sharp flakes flying off had filled the air for millions of years. Aidan is hard at work, slowly shaving one side of the core down into a thin edge. But when I move in to take a closer look, I see that the rock he's holding is smeared with blood. He's cut himself. But he says there is an upside.
You tend to get a better result when you bleed on the rock a little.
Michelle, Jane, and Aidan keep hammering away at their stones, and the sandbox starts to become littered with the razor-like flakes. Watching them, it's clear that there's a whole lot more involved here than just banging rocks together. It takes concentration and planning. To start with, you have to know which rocks to use. Not only which types of stone, but which particular chunks are likely to be better or worse to work with. Jane says that some cores have invisible cracks in them, and advanced knappers try to sort those out so they don't waste time shaping them into tools only to have them break.
Expert nappers hit their cores with their hammers, and based on the sounds, they can hear cracks.
An early flint napper may have done a little bit of knocking around to learn, like, oh, this is a good rock.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It sort of speaks to cultural learning, I imagine, then, like if you're the child of the flint napper or just if you're in the group, you're learning from the adults on how to do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You're around adults all the time who are doing it, and you're eventually picking it up from them, and they're probably actively teaching you these things as well.
Aidan says that with experience, you get better at aiming your blows and more efficiently shaping the core into the form you're trying to make. But sometimes, no matter what you do, it doesn't quite work out, he says. The rock just refuses to break the way you want it to.
So you keep hitting it, and it keeps not working, and the problem gets worse and worse and worse.
So sometimes you just have to give up, he says, and toss that stone aside. And when he's out excavating at a prehistoric site, Aidan says these artifacts of frustration from a fellow stone toolmaker are some of his favorite things to find.
You go out into the field, and you find a discarded core. You're like, yeah, I've been there, buddy.
And that buddy could be 100,000 years old.
Yeah, or more than that, or whatever.
Yeah, that is very cool.
Nice sound.
Yeah.
A nice flake with sharp edges that you could use.
You can hear that. Even if you hadn't been looking, you could have heard that.
Yeah, I would have heard that. And I've never thought about it before, but yeah, just because of the topic of this podcast, I'm like, no, even if I wasn't watching, I could have told you that was a flake coming off.
Interesting. So there is definitely a sonic element to this.
There is definitely a sound. If you get it right, it makes the nice like ting sound. It all goes together at once. If you don't, it makes various thudding sounds. A mate of mine was upstairs when we were at his place napping. He was making a cuppa. And he comes down, he's like, that's really inefficient napping.
From the sound of it.
From upstairs, listening to the sound of it, he's like, that's clearly not working for you.
Was he right?
Yeah, of course it was right. A flake came off that one, but that was less good. That was good.
As I listen to Aidan work, I'm pretty amazed to think that this was once one of the loudest sounds humans made. He tells me that he and a friend have started an informal club for folks who like to do flint napping, and I asked him what it sounds like when they get together. Are you talking? Are you quiet?
Bit of both. You'll see sort of like at the start, you'll see like lots of talking, everyone's getting there, settling in, and then you'll talk and chat about different things. But then sometimes you'll just get that silence where people sort of focusing on what they're doing, and then you might talk for a bit after that, or it'll like go quiet again, and just back and forth, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is where the flint napping and language connection comes in, because they've worked out the same part of the brain is being used for both of these activities.
Michelle says researchers have actually wired up flint nappers so they can see what's happening in their brains in real time. And the parts of the brain that light up as the nappers work the rocks are the same ones that are used for conversation. So much so that most people struggle to do both things at once. They alternate between talking and napping, just as Aidan described, and as he's doing with me.
So there's some kind of connection. The same area of your brain that we use for language is also used for making stone tools.
So there appears to be a correlation between stone tool making and language, but causation, if there is any, remains a mystery. We don't know if the process of creating stone tools and the process of creating language happened separately or together, or what sort of feedback loops between the two might have been involved. For example, maybe stone tool making slowly changed the brain in ways that made it more likely for language to evolve. Or maybe language allowed ancestral humans to develop and pass on new tool-making skills. Or maybe both things happened at once. Of course, language isn't a requirement for teaching. We can learn a whole lot simply by watching someone demonstrate a task. But words can be very helpful. They sure were for me.
You can hit it there.
Hit it.
There. So,
I'm holding the core in one hand and the small hammerstone in the other. Michelle and Jane are serving as documentarians temporarily, and Aiden is trying to guide me through the process of making a good flake.
so you want to hold it so that the force is going that way. You're holding it that way. Where's your force going? It's going there. So you want to go there.
Oh, okay, so I want to hit it kind of right
into
on.
the rock.
Okay.
Sort of into the rock.
Okay.
And just mindful of your thumb,
Okay.
that you're not.
Yeah, don't hit that.
Okay.
Yeah, that you're tucking it back.
Okay. Got it. My initial results were unimpressive. Not a master napper.
That's okay.
Listening back to this now, I can hear that I was hitting the stone very weakly.
There's a napper in the UK says you've got to talk quite forcefully to the rock. So you got to like
You listen to me, Rock.
Yeah. Bit of flake off.
there
Okay.
and give it a
Oh yeah.
Sounds better, but nothing's happening.
You know what they say in baseball, like follow through?
Yeah, I
Make
suck
sure
at
you're
baseball.
doing that.
That's why I became a journalist, because I'm no good at sports. I'll give it one more shot here.
Oh, it's close.
There we go.
It was surprisingly satisfying to chip even one sharp flake off of this rock. Everywhere that Homo sapiens went, we brought this technology with us. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Siberia, into the
Yes.
Americas, everything.
Everywhere.
It's that useful.
Oh yeah.
It makes me really want to learn how to do it.
I know. It's fun. It's problem solving. You know, it's creative.
It's very creative.
It's physical.
I mean, you can do it now, right? Like you made
Yeah,
some
you made some
flakes. So
flakes.
if you're like out in the woods and you're stuck there for days and you're like, I need a knife for something.
Yeah.
You can make one.
a really bad one.
Well, I
But
mean,
it
you
would
just
work.
need a flake,
You just
right?
need a flake.
Even a little one. I mean, it's sharp. You could, you know,
You could cut
do
things.
what you need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jane and Michelle have much greater confidence in me than I have in myself, but I do feel just a tiny bit more equipped to do this if I had to. And it helps me imagine how transformative it must have been when our ancestors started making tools like these. What a game changer to not have to just rely on what you could find, but actually be able to create something that could be used to slice meat off the bone, chop up tough, fibrous roots, defend yourself from an attack, or cut up a hide to wrap around a vulnerable newborn. This is the sound of development. This is the sound of like, we can do more now.
Yeah, it's kind of like an industrial revolution, you know? It's like society changing. It's the sounds of that.
And that revolution wasn't only about what these new tools allowed us to do, but also how the process of making them affected us. This percussive, spacious activity may have been a natural gateway into music making, or language, or both.
We've been on excavation teams in France, and everyone has their little 1 by 1 meter square, and we're all quietly digging away with small knives at this site, and it'd just be silent. And then after a while, people start singing. So it's funny how you have the silence, but then music will start.
I think that's really important actually, because it's the moments of silence, the space in between, that we absolutely don't have anymore, and how interesting that something arises out of that that wouldn't arise if all this space was filled.
Yeah, yeah.
This sound of stone tool making is like a magical thread, connecting the present moment to a distant time, or many other times. Lucy probably heard it, and may well have made it herself 3 million years ago. And the first members of our species would have too, 300,000 years ago. And here I am, sitting on a university campus in Australia, making it now. We'll have more after this short break. Hey, it's Amy, and I'm popping in here quickly to tell you that I've recently started a newsletter on Substack called Letters to Earthlings. I started it for several reasons, but one of them is that I want to connect with you, Threshold listeners. We spend so much time making Threshold episodes, and then we release them, and that's kind of it. I don't know much about your experience, and I'm so curious which stories stick with you and why, what questions you're left with. I want to think with you about the big issues we're covering on Threshold, and about other related things too. If that sounds fun or interesting to you, please come check it out. Once again, it's called Letters to Earthlings, and you can find it by searching for that on Substack. Thanks.
ที่เชียงใหม่สักหน่อยมีการเตือนเรื่องนกพิราบ
Welcome back to Threshold. I'm Amy Martin, and this is a morning newscast from Thailand.
อย่างที่เราทราบกันเนี่ยอันนี้ในแง่ของนักท่องเที่ยวมักจะมีการมาถ่ายภาพหรือถ่ายคลิป
ค่ะแล้วก็จะแบบต้องทำให้นกมันบินขึ้นมา
แล้วก็มีการมาแอบขายอาหารค่ะท่านผู้ชมฮะ
I don't speak Thai, so I am completely clueless about what information or ideas these two people might be sharing. But I do understand that the sounds they're making contain information and ideas. In other words, I know that these sounds are symbols for other things. I don't know what those symbols are, but I could learn.
ขวงประตูท่าแพแลนด์มาร์กกลางเมืองเชียงใหม่นักท่องเที่ยวจีนยังมีเลย
ก็คือไปถ่ายรูปกับฝูง
As humans, this is something we just take for granted. We know from experience that other members of our species make sounds that can be used as symbols. We call it language, and as normal as it seems to us now, it's pretty special.
It's not something that happened overnight with a flick of a switch or with the addition of a new gene. It's not like that. It's a system that evolved over time.
This is Sarah Wirtz.
I'm a professor of archaeology at the University of the Witwatersrand in Johannesburg. So I teach archaeology and I do research in archaeology as well as in archaeomusic and the evolution of music.
Sarah says one of the fascinating things about language is its collaborative nature. The way a random sound becomes a symbol for something else, not just in my mind or yours, but in ours, together.
And a symbol is something that you use that has no natural referent in the outside world. So I call this a pen, but there's no reason for calling it a pen. It's between us. It's a cultural name for something.
Twins sometimes do this as children. They develop their own language that's only understandable to them. And in some ways, the languages we all speak are just like that, but scaled up.
We use symbols between individuals. It's not an individual thing, it's a group thing. It's about communicating ideas within a group. So it needs to become a convention.
And learning a new language is essentially learning a new set of conventions. In English, we say food. In Spanish, comida. In Swedish, mat. In Thai, ahan, I think. It takes time and effort, but once language as a concept exists in your mind, it's kind of just a game of filling in the blanks. It's an entirely different endeavor to make the leap from having no language at all into a world of words and sentences. How do you kick off that process?
How would you lay down that very first symbol in the brain?
Sarah says the simplest answer is that we don't know.
It's all indirect evidence. There is not a smoking gun, you know. You have to put together your argument.
And there is a lot of argument. The question of how human language evolved is a great way to start a fight among archaeologists, biologists, anthropologists, and everybody else who thinks about this kind of stuff. But Sarah thinks it might be connected to this. About 1 million years after Lucy's time, Homo erectus arrived on the scene, and it was a big deal.
There seemed to have been a watershed with the evolution of Homo erectus 2 million years ago.
Sarah says Homo erectus had a body that was more similar to ours than anything that came before, in multiple ways. But their signature difference and what they're named for is their ability to walk upright. Their predecessors also walked upright at least some of the time, but Homo erectus was fully bipedal, and that gave them a very different experience of the world. Like us, Homo erectus had a relatively wide pelvis and long legs, which allowed them to walk and run further and faster. And if you've ever walked or run in a quiet place, you know that the sound of your feet hitting the earth creates a strong rhythm. You can't help but notice it. Homo erectus would have experienced this repetitive sound, and as they moved across the landscape in groups, they likely fell into synchronized rhythmic movement with each other, like we do.
So when you jog, for example, people tend to synchronize their movements.
So what does all of this have to do with language?
I think that the capability to walk on two legs habitually and to run also had a big influence in how your brain makes sense of signals. How you move influence how you make concepts. If you want to learn a concept, your neurons must fire together.
And one of the best ways to get neurons firing together is through rhythmic movement.
So you need a mnemonic, and that is a memory aid for you to be able to create the first symbols. Through rhythmic movement, you can repeat a concept enough so that you form a symbol in your mind. Children that have problems in learning language, for example, or to speak, what do? They teach those symbols or words with rhythmic movement. So I will go, for example.
A rhythm, a beat. Internally, it gets our neurons firing together, and externally, it gets individuals moving together. And that could have delivered a lot of benefits to early humans. Picture yourself moving across the savannah in a small group when a lion suddenly appears. If everyone starts running in all directions, willy-nilly, to the lion, you sound like what you are, a group of panicked animals. But if you manage to synchronize your movements, the vibes change dramatically.
To the lion that you want to impress, you seem like one being if you move together and you make sound together.
And moving together may have been an advantage when early humans were in the role of predator as well. It could have helped them flush prey animals out of a hiding spot or herd them in a certain direction. Of course, we can't know for sure if Homo erectus synchronized their movements and created sounds together, but it's possible, and doing so might have helped them survive. And maybe that's why even today, our bodies reward us when we move in time with each other and make rhythms and sounds together.
There's a whole host of hormones that get secreted when you do this, happy hormones. So there's a very bodily reaction to moving rhythmically that creates a situation of trust. You start trusting each other implicitly.
And trust is an extremely high-value commodity for social animals.
We are group animals, and actually to live in a group is really stressful. If you're a group of hominins that stay together, say you're more than 30, if we cannot create trust between individuals, it's a highly stressful situation. What do you do? How do you deal with the stress? How do you communicate inside the group and then also outside?
Music is a powerful way to bring a group together, build trust, and relieve social stress. Throughout time, humans have sung and danced in celebration, in mourning, to thank and appease the gods, and to prepare for battle. Sarah says this pattern is repeated in culture after culture.
Get together, sing, dance, clap, make sound, become one, and then do what you have to do. How this links then is that moving together rhythmically, possibly by 2 million years ago, might have created the ideal ground for starting thinking in symbols, starting trusting each other in a group in a certain way for a music language to develop.
So way before Homo sapiens.
Yes, that is my contention, yeah.
The importance of group music making is captured in images painted onto cave walls tens of thousands of years ago. People playing flutes and beating drums and dancing. And occasionally, archaeologists find instruments made of bone. But of course, the sounds themselves are lost forever, along with the very first musical instruments, the bodies and breath of our ancestors.
Our bodies are musical. We only need our body to make a rhythmic sound, stamp our feet, we can clap our hands.
And singing.
Singing, absolutely. So for me, music really defines who we are. It bonds people.
It's late afternoon on the campus of Augustana College in Rock Island, Illinois, and the choir is warming up. Around 50 students, standing in tiered rows, stretch out their voices under the direction of Dr. John Hurdy. I was in Augustana Choir myself when I was a student here, and like Sarah said, the experience was deeply bonding. I asked Dr. Hurdy if I could come back for a visit to think with him and these students about what being a member of this kind of choir might have to tell us about being a member of the whole planetary ensemble of living, singing things. He kindly said yes, and I dropped in on a rehearsal just 3 weeks into a new term, when the students were still getting to know the music and each other.
Everyone down the half step. Everyone except the altos down the half step. Altos down the half step. Good.
After they've warmed up, they start working on a piece called The Sun Never Says. John has a few notes. He tells the sopranos, the highest voices, to get a little quieter in a certain section in order to make room for other voices to be heard.
Same with the tenors. Make sure that you're out of the way so that we hear the other voices, and then the other voices need to be more present with the melodic material, okay? Let's start at To the Earth. To the Earth.
They go through that section again.
So this is the thing about listening, right, is that we need to, while we're singing, sopranos and tenors, we need to listen to the other parts. Because if you listen to the other parts, you'll start to balance it, right? You don't need to really think, oh, technically I need to do this decrescendo. You need to think like, that's what I'm supposed to be hearing at that moment. And that will help you make that happen. Okay? One more time, same place, and we're going to go on, I promise.
That little moment of instruction went by really fast, but I think it's actually quite profound. John wants the sopranos and tenors to be a little quieter. He thinks they're dominating the sound a bit too much in this section. But to correct that, the instruction he gives is simply listen. Tune into the parts that aren't you. Keep singing, but focus your attention on other voices, and the whole ensemble will naturally come into better balance.
I try to get them to use their full voice, their whole instrument, their whole body, all the air that they can. And at the same time, they have to do that while they have their ears open to the people around them, right? So they're really listening and making sure that they're attuned to the people around them.
This is something that will be familiar to all musicians. Creating beautiful sounds with other people is as much of a receptive act as it is an expressive one. In fact, singing and listening are so intertwined, it really makes more sense to think of them as one process with two equal parts.
It is pretty close to 50-50. They have to know how to react to what they're hearing around them and then adjust to make the sound work.
Our language doesn't do a good job of representing this. At least in English, we talk about making music and listening to music as if they're entirely separate things. There are those people up there on stage who are the makers, and then other people, often very quiet people, who are the listeners. But the actual lived experience of making music isn't like that at all. The wonder of it is being inside a sound that you're hearing and producing simultaneously, and that transcends anything that one individual could do on their own.
In my mind, it's what's so important and incredible about singing choral music and being involved in a choir, the realization that you are part of something that's much bigger than yourself.
I don't know, this sounds so cheesy, but it sometimes physically, I physically feel it in my chest, in my heart.
This is Cassidy.
I can't believe that I'm a part of making this sound happen right now. What a cool experience that we get to have, and what a cool thing we get to share with the people around us.
Yeah, it's not cheesy.
Another student, Xander, says he joined the choir in middle school, and it sounds like for him, it was something of a lifeline.
I was a very shy person, and I was not very outgoing, and I didn't really talk to people that much. And I feel like a lot of that was me internalizing and always thinking about myself and what I was doing.
But in choir, more of his attention went to taking in the voices around him and away from constant self-scrutiny.
You have a voice in your head that you're listening to instead of the other people. But if you actually listen to them, you'll be like, they're not thinking that. That's ridiculous.
Listening often gets presented as something that we should do, like it's a chore or a polite thing to do for other people. But it's actually a gift first and foremost to ourselves, a doorway out of the darkest rooms of our own minds and into something all of us need: connection.
When you're singing in a choir, there's this feeling, you get this goosebumps, this feeling that goes all the way through your body.
This is Maggie.
But if you're not listening to other people around you as well as yourself, you're not going to be able to make a beautiful sound like we do in choir.
So you don't want to stick out.
This is Julian.
You don't want to be that guy who's just over everybody else. You really have to listen, especially because you don't want to float off pitch.
So even people like these singers, with some natural talent for a certain kind of listening, have to work at it hard. Creating sounds that fit into the group and enhance it takes intentional effort.
We start at "You Owe Me" tenors. You owe me. I'm hearing "You owe me. You owe me."
Unifying the pitch is just step one. Every vowel sound is tweaked, every consonant is scrutinized. Rhythm, dynamics, tone, color. The singers are focusing deeply on all aspects of their sound, coming into a state of heightened collective attention. And with enough practice, a choir becomes one organism, breathing, singing, and listening together.
The concept in the choir is I am part of a community, and my goal is to have this bigger sound that is created from a group of people that I could never do by myself. It's an amazing sound that I could never do by myself, and I can only do that because I'm part of a bigger entity. It's this amazing feeling that they get when they are part of something like that. There's no way to explain exactly how that happens. It's just if you get a group of people who really care about that together, then magic happens.
That magic isn't only available to people who sing in a choir. We're all born into a calling, humming, chirping, howling ensemble of life on Earth. And maybe remembering that can help us disrupt this dichotomy we often get trapped in, where the only options we can imagine are completely dominating spaces with our noise on the one hand, or trying to totally silence ourselves on the other. There is a third way. We're capable of listening and harmonizing, attuning ourselves to the sounds around us, helping to make our places sound more beautiful. Lately, our species hasn't been fitting into the group all that well. We're way too loud and way off key. But our voices do belong here too. Just like every other creature we've met this season, we're part of this choir. This episode of Threshold was written, reported, and produced by me, Amy Martin, with help from Erica Janik and Sam Moore. Music by Todd Sikafus. Post-production by Alan Douches. Fact-checking by Sam Moore. Special thanks to Aiden Hughes for gifting me with the hand axe he made during our interview. Follow us on Instagram to see a picture of it, minus the blood. Threshold is made by Oracle Productions, a nonprofit organization powered by listener donations. And that means you. We really need your support to keep Threshold going. Find out more about our show and make your tax-deductible donation at thresholdpodcast.org.